Let's pivot now to something slightly different, but in the same vein. I want to talk about globalization, right? So in the late 90s, we saw a move towards greater globalization. China entered the WTO. We had some economies modernizing around the world. However, what was very interesting was the outsourcing of jobs from Western economies. Now, don't get me wrong. Those of us in other countries, and I'm sitting here in South Africa, and I'm sure in Asia, they will say the same. They would welcome this move. But it was still very puzzling. I was a kid watching, CNN, late 90s, and I couldn't understand why Bill Clinton would push to take jobs out of the US. So can you maybe explain why he would do that?
Yes, I can explain why. When I was in the universities, the position was that corporations had obligations to their customers, their employees, their communities, and to their shareholders. And therefore, all of these things had to be balanced. Now, the liberals at the time are the ones responsible, in my view, for what caused the offshoring of jobs, because they started trying to load up the corporations with more responsibilities. In other words, they were trying to make the corporations fund what the social programs they wanted that they couldn't get funded out of Congress. So they wanted the corporations to start running daycare centers and schools for kids who are behind, and homes for single mothers. And I mean, they started arguing to put more responsibilities, social responsibilities, on the corporations. Well, this scared conservatives and some economists, because they said, wow, I mean, the cost of the company is going to go way up. They don't get any profits out of this. There's nothing, they're not getting any more productivity out of this. It's just rising costs. This is going to hurt investment. It's going to cause higher prices. It's going to be inflationary. And so I think it was Milton Friedman, the Chicago School, made the argument, as did others, convincingly, that the only responsibility corporations had was to shareholders. So the minute this took hold, that the corporation's only responsibility is shareholders, that means its only responsibility is to maximize profits. And so when the Soviet Union collapsed, this dramatically altered the mindsets in India and China toward capitalism. And they opened their markets to foreign capital. Well, Wall Street instantly told all the corporations, take your production to Asia. Your cost will fall. Your profits will go way up. It's good for us. Meet the Chinese price. So the corporations had this pressure. They now had a perfect excuse. The only obligation is shareholders. Share means profits. They were also incentivized to do this. Congress had passed a law that if you paid an executive more than $1 million in annual salary, it was not deductible as a business expense, unless it was performance related. Well, all of a sudden, the executive said, oh, wow, if we collapse the labor cost, whoo, boy, my take-home pay is going to skyrocket. I'm going to have all these performance-related bonuses, and my salary won't even be chicken feed. It's not even pocket change. And today, the salary is nothing compared to their bonus pay, the performance pay. So that's what happened. And now some corporations didn't want to abandon their home base, their cities where they were important, their workforces. They didn't want to be seen in a negative way by the communities they grew up in and had represented. And these that resisted, Wall Street would say, move, or we're going to finance a takeover and take the company away from you. So, and I witnessed this myself. So that's how that happened. That's how the offshoring of jobs. First of all, if the Soviet Union hadn't collapsed, it probably wouldn't have happened, because, you know, the end of history is, they said, oh, the Soviet collapse proves there's no alternative to capitalism. Well, this affected the Chinese, who were communists. It affected the Indians, who were socialists. They opened up the foreign capital. And if the liberals had left it alone and not tried to load up the companies with social responsibilities, is what they called it, I don't think Milton Friedman would have made that argument. And the companies would have been, like always, they've got responsibilities to a range of things, not just shareholders. They'd still be here. So that's how that happened.